Man who spent all his life trying to organize civil society, trying to move legislation to improve the lives of millions of children around the world. I've had the privilege of speaking with Kailash Satyarthi several times in the past, and we've done some work with him back in India as well, so I'm particularly privileged to be here this evening to speak with him. The theme in Davos this year is Globalisation 4.0, Mr. Satyarthi, and we talk about technology, and we talk about trade, and we talk about trade negotiations and investment, but nobody talks about the globalization of compassion, and that is what you've spent your life working on. Why is it that that message doesn't go through?
Thank you everyone, first of all, for all your love and respect for me. We have seen the results of globalization of markets, technology, economies, and knowledge, of course. And we have seen the results in both ways. We have seen the flip side of it, and we have seen some advantages of it. But I feel that if 152 million children are still working at the cost of their childhood and freedom and education, we cannot call ourselves cultured and civilized, advanced in any manner. Even if one single child is in danger, world cannot call itself that this is a safe planet. So I started thinking that let us globalize compassion. We have globalized everything. I'm not talking about sympathy or empathy. Sympathy is the outermost circle, empathy is a little bit inner. But when we talk of compassion, it is a feeling for the suffering of others as it is your own suffering, and then a drive to change that situation of suffering, and that becomes compassion. And I strongly feel that all religions in the world were born out of compassion of some people. May it be Jesus, may it be Buddha, may it be Gandhi, may it be Hazrat Muhammad. They were compassionate. Similarly, the revolutions and changes also born of compassion. When some people felt that Mao felt, or Lenin felt, or Marx felt that something is going wrong in the society, that was the spark of compassion. So we have globalized everything. Now, time to globalize compassion, because compassion is the most precious gift of God, which we all have inside us. But we don't recognize it, we don't acknowledge it, we don't respect it, and we think that there are drops of waters, but it's not true. It's an ocean which is inside each one of us. So my effort by doing all this work is to ensure that let us globalize compassion.
You know, you talk about globalization of compassion, and a lot of progress has been made. This film is an indication of the ground that has been covered so far. But as you look at the world today, and there is a sense that political leaders especially are starting to look more inwards, insular. There is protection, there's this sense of nationalism at the exclusion of others. In that context, do you worry about being able to take this story forward, being able to achieve the goals set out by the UN, etc., eradication of child labor by 2030? And I'll link this to what we're seeing on the healthcare side as well, where a lot of the change and the progress has been made on account of development assistance from developed countries. Do you fear that we are going to see less of that as we move forward?
I don't fear, but I'm definitely concerned. I'm concerned seeing the trends as well as the political and economic situation where the children do not gain that priority in the development agenda, in political agenda or economic agenda. So that is a matter of concern. That world is not spending enough, investing enough, in fact, on education for children or well-being of children. when we talk of education, $22 billion additional money is needed to ensure primary education for all children.
That's it.
That's it, $22 billion annually. And what is this $22 billion? That is 4.5 days of global military expenditure. So if you, I'm just bringing that comparison, that what is the priority of the world? The education of our children, which can open up the future, which can open up the windows of all the opportunities, which can act as assurance for all human rights and dignity and justice and equality, education. But we don't prioritize education. Our priorities are different. So this film, in fact, is trying to raise these questions. And I could feel inside you what is happening inside you. You started feeling that many of you never thought that slavery still exists in its cruelest forms like this. Even worst, because these people could do filming in a limited manner, but the situation is even worse in many parts of the world, not only in India. So we tried to build the sense of moral responsibility towards each other, and that will help in pressurizing our lawmakers and governments to prioritize the issues of children in the broader development in human rights discourses, and that is possible. I have seen it, or I would say that somehow I have contributed in bringing about that change, that the number of child laborers, as you have seen, has gone down from 260 million to 150 million in last 16, 17 years. So it is possible. I would say that if we are able to ignite compassion among young people, the change is inevitable. No politicians, no prime minister, no president, no government can stop it. Change is knocking the door in the minds and hearts of young people. They wanted to make this world a better place. Do you or not? Yes or no? More just place, or the place with all those evils and injustices? A just world? Definitely. You are sitting in the front and your voice is louder than the voice of many of the young people. I think you are still shocked with the film?
Yes.
Yeah. In few minutes, in couple of minutes, you will recharge and your voice will become louder and louder.
You know, and that's the perfect segue to put my next question to you before I open it up to the audience. You've been responsible for organizing two very large civil society movements addressing child labor as well as education. You know, you've got a lot of young people here in this room. They would want to make an impact. They would like to engage with these causes. How do you go about doing it? How do you involve civil society? Forget government, what the government in the US or India or the UK does or doesn't do. But how do we organize civil society to work towards making it a more equal, fair, just world?
So in both these worldwide campaigns, or you can call it movements, the Global March Against Child Labor, as well as the Global Campaign for Education, I highly depended and counted on the power of young people. In 1998, when we demanded an international law against child slavery, child trafficking, use of children in hazardous occupations, most of the governments did not buy it because they said that, okay, it's an ongoing thing and we cannot stop it because of our economic situations and poverty and so on. But the youth did not accept it. And when we organized a physical march across 103 countries, 15 million people and mostly young people from schools, colleges and universities participated in it. And they said very profoundly, very strongly, with strong moral voice and authority, that world is not so poor that cannot give books and pencils in the hands of young people in the world and take away the guns and tools. And nobody could say no to it. 71 president prime ministers joined the march because they realized that the power of young people is not going to forget and forgive them. So eventually, this law has been made. Similarly, in global campaign in education, for education, 32 million young people signed up and joined hands. Now, trusting on the power of young people, not only the power of their energy and enthusiasm, but the power of their morality, their purity of heart, their anger, and their drive to change the world and make this world a better place. I have launched a new campaign, 100 million for 100 million campaign. In short, we call it 100 million campaign. 100 million young people of your age are victims of violence, slavery, trafficking, child labor, bonded labor, etc. 50 million children out of them are on move, navigating for a safer place tonight to stay because they are displaced from their houses and homes and countries and became refugees because of global warming, because of crisis in the countries and conflicts and so on. So 100 million young people are facing these problems which they are not responsible for. On the other hand, world has 3 billion youth below the age of 25. And I count on them. Out of them, hundreds of millions are ready to take up challenges. Hundreds of millions are willing to do something now, right away. And they wanted to prove themselves that they do exist in the world and they can shape a new world which is more just and more equitable. Hundreds of millions of young people, and that is my experience working across 150 countries in the last 20-30 years. So trusting on that, I call 100 million youth to be the change makers, to be the leaders, to be the voices of those 100 million left out sisters and brothers of yours. Why those 100 million young people of your age are suffering or younger than you are suffering? This is unacceptable. So I am calling 100 million young people. Do you like this idea? Yes. Who like the idea? Raise your hands.
Full house.
Full house? I tell you, I was telling her that childhood is not an age. If you still have courage to question, if you still can challenge wrongs, if you still can laugh freely, cry freely, talk to people freely without any hesitation, you can never become old. Even if you are 70-year-old, I feel that you can still remain angry young man or young woman. So you can raise your hands. Don't be shy. I'm asking all of you, those who believe that 100 million young drivers should shape a new world, a better world to save this generation and all the generations to come, then raise your hands. Oh God, I did not say that raise your one hand. I said raise your hands. Raise your hands. Oh, good, great. I'm sure you are still very young. What about you? You were a little late? No, everybody is young.
Yes, so as you've said rightly, that it's a mindset, it's not a number. Do people, governments specifically, take you more seriously now, post the Nobel?
I hope so. At least they say that they are taking me seriously. But they will definitely take me and 100 million young people seriously when the youth take the charge for change. And that's why I am counting not only on the governments, of course I go to the governments and talk to the presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens and so on, the business leaders. I will keep on doing it. But frankly speaking, my real trust lies in you and you.